Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Elhamdülillahi Rabbil alemin. Ve salatu ve selamu ala Resulina Muhammed ve ala alihi ve ashabihi ecmain. Good evening. Welcome to this seminar. This evening topic is going to be about well-known 13th century scholar, someone calls mystic, Sufi, jurist, Mevlana Muhammad Jalaluddin al-Balkhi or al-Rumi, as known in the West. First of all, let me say that great figures can be understood properly by the great man, by the great human. So my understanding of Rumi, it will be very humble. It's like probably a drop from a river, let me say that. First of all, I would look at from the four perspective his life. Number one, historical context, because every scholar is the product of his time. And second, his educational and spiritual background. And third, through hal. Hal means, it's not just actions, but I would say that action, which is combination of reasoning, heart, wisdom, sincerity, tears, and suffering. How that reflect in Rumi's life. And finally, I will focus on his products, not the works, especially his books or poems, because there will be second speaker, Brother Muhammad Wardak, who is well-versed, of course. Even Persian language is his mother language. So I know a little bit Persian, it's my fifth language, but I know in very, very elementary level. So that's why it was necessary to ask someone who can understand or very well the Persian language to talk about his works, especially Mathnavi, Divan-ı Kabir, and Fihi Mafi. So, when someone asked Rumi, he wanted to understand, how is he? His answer was, if you become like me, you will understand me. So therefore, let me confess that it is impossible for me to understand Rumi properly. However, I will try my best to talk about Rumi, because that task was given to me this evening about Mevlana Jalaluddin Muhammad al-Balkhi or al-Rumi. If you look at it from the historical context, that time the Muslim world, there was caliphate in Baghdad, but very weak. And second, in the west there was an Al-Andalus. Also in the north, there were some other states. Ayyubids on one hand. On the other hand, Seljuks, Ghaznavids, especially in today the part of Iran, Afghanistan, even in modern-day Pakistan, from Lahore up to almost Tabriz. That was a Ghaznavid state. So Rumi was born in Balkh, a city in modern-day in Afghanistan. And his father, Bahauddin Walad, he is known as Sultan al-Ulama, which means the Sultan of the scholars. So how did he get that title? According to Aflaki, the biographer of Rumi, he says that actually that title was given to him by the Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessing upon him, in his dream, that he was the Sultan of the scholars. One of the principles of Bahauddin, Rumi's father, was istighna. Istighna means that serving humanity or religion or Islam without any financial or any other expectation. So Rumi was able from time to time also to give advice to the leaders of that time. Especially severely, he warned the Ghaznavid leaders, the Sultan, if you do not act justly, that you will be punished by your enemies. because the corruption was probably common at that time. And so he focused a lot on this issue and warned the leaders of that time. However, they did not listen. And then what we see that Bahauddin Walad, with his family, including more than 40 students, they left Balkh, they left their city with tears, not just from his family, his students, his followers, as well as the residents of Balkh and the city, the village he used to live. So when he left with 300 camels, by the way, he left, and his aim was not return to Ghaznavid again, because according to, again, Aflaki, also indirectly is mentioned in the Bahauddin Walad's book, Al-Ma'arif as well, it was inspired to him to leave Balkh or Ghaznavid and to immigrate. So their journey began, and first they come to Khorasan, where came across Fakhruddin Attar, a well-known, again, a Sufi mystic. His name, he's author of Conference of Birds, actually, Mantiq al-Tayr. And when Fakhruddin Attar saw that Rumi is walking behind his father, Bahauddin Walad, he made a statement. He said that an ocean is following a sea. This meant that probably he discovered who was Rumi at a young age. Rumi at that time, by the scholars, according to them, that he was 12 or 13 years old. So from there they went to Baghdad. When they arrived to the gate, so the gatekeeper asked them, "Who are you? Where are you going? Where are you coming from?" And Bahauddin Walad responded that we came from God and we are again going to God. We have no strength except for God. So the answer was very unique. One of the great figures' characteristic is they summarize very important lessons in maybe in one sentence, sometimes in a few words. You know, we see this, that how the wisdom reflects in their life or in their words. So then the gatekeeper let the caliph know that there's a great man, Lux, he arrived here. So the caliph and his admin people, they greeted him and they invited him to live in a palace, provided him, kind of like financial help and other kind of help. But Bahauddin Walad declined. As I said, one of the main principle of all the great figures are istighna. Probably you heard from Salahuddin, when he died, he did not leave any inheritance. The money he left, it was only sufficient for his burial. So Bahauddin Walad said that, no, we don't want any position, any financial help, or any palaces to live, just a place that we can, small accommodation. Then they show him the madrasa, Mansuriya madrasa, which was a college at that time. So they stayed for a while, and Bahauddin Walad started preaching in the mosque. Even the caliph would attend. And Bahauddin Walad, would neglect who is in even. He would treat caliph as an ordinary man. And then also he warned him as well that, there's a corruption in the system. You should, and your admin people should act accurately. If you don't, there's a Mongol invasion is possible. But however, the caliph also did not listen. And when he did not listen, then what we see, Bahauddin Walad, his family, including Rumi, they left Baghdad as well. Baghdad was the center of the knowledge by at that time. As you know, the Bayt al-Hikmah, the House of Wisdom, was a biggest library in the world for the 250 years till the Mongol invasion. Despite that, they stayed there for a while, but they did not stay permanently. So from there, they went to Mecca and Medina. They performed their Hajj and did not stay there longer as well. That shows that, I think, because, let me say, if today, I don't know which city can be, London or New York or the center of the knowledge, center of information. but you go there, it's like beautiful, everything, and still you don't want to stay there. This means that, Rumi's father actually was inspired not to stay there as well. So he left Mecca and Medina, then they came to Damascus. Damascus, again, it was another center for knowledge that time. Probably after the Baghdad was the second. Because according to Ibn Shaddad, a well-known historian, he says that there was over 650 mosques, more than 40 colleges, and how many small madrasas? Probably over thousands. Even not just education, as well as in terms of the health, in terms of the the welfare system, what we call foundations. Awqaf, again, is quite well known as a city. And according to, again, one historian, over 500 muftis actually were educated in Damascus, in 10, 20 years that time. So it was a center for knowledge. And then from Damascus, they did not stay long as well. They went to Malatya, Erzincan, Karaman in Anatolia, and finally, when he was in Karaman, almost they stayed there for 7 years. Again, the Amir of there, at that time, like the governor, he offered him to stay, in a luxury, maybe like a palace. But again, Bahattin Walid declined. Gradually, Alaaddin Keykubat, the Sultan of Seljuk, heard about him, that he was a well-known, eminent scholar. So he invited him to come to Konya, but initially declined. He said that I don't want to see someone who is committing big sins, who is not acting justly. As soon as when Alaaddin Keykubat heard that, he started weeping and he quitted the two major sins he was committing at that time. And then he invited, and Bahattin Walid accepted. Of course, he greeted him at the entrance of the Konya, and he wanted again to give him, like a palace and a good accommodation, a salary. But Rumi's father declined. He said, we don't want anything. And just then they saw him a very newly building. Still, it was not completed that time, a madrasa. So, and his family and his students, they stayed there. And after a while, what we know that his father passed away. So when his father passed away, Rumi took his position at the age of 25. At that age, when he took his position, again, according to Aflaki, the biographer of Rumi, says that Bahattin Muhakkik, another important scholar, a great figure, he saw a dream. In his dream, Rumi's father told him that, go and educate my son, or do not leave him alone. So Bahattin Muhakkik, he immigrated to Konya as well. And almost 8 years, he was with Mevlana Jalaluddin Rumi. Of course, by that age, Rumi was educated in Damascus, in the madrasas. He was well versed in all Islamic disciplines, in hadith, in fiqh, in recitation of the Quran, in jurisprudence, in tafsirs, kalam, and so on. So he almost, a scholar of the all Islamic disciplines, or like a multi-disciplinary scholar. Then what we see that there are, in terms of his education background, but before that, interesting conversation between Alaaddin Keykubat and Rumi's father. One day, Alaaddin Keykubat, was sitting with him. He says that whenever I enter his presence of, Mevlana's father, Bahattin Walid, I trembled. He says, I'm a sultan. When the people hears my name, people tremble. But when I enter the presence of the Rumi's father, then my body shakes. And he asked him, he said that, Sultan al-Ulama, or the Sultan of the scholar, you and I, I'm the Sultan of the state, you are Sultan of the scholars. You and I, both of us, we are going to die. Then what will happen? And it is very interesting, how Bahattin Walid responded. He says, your sovereignty endures as long as your eyes are open. But mine will begin when my eyes close forever. So my sultanate will begin when I die. That's also, all great scholars are not known by their time because, again, Rumi's biographer, Aflaki, he says that Rumi, when he came to this world, he came as a stranger, he left as a stranger. So great people are not understood in their time. This is almost the destiny of all great figures in the history of Islam. In other histories as well, by the way, not just in the history of Islam. So from the educational perspective, Rumi was, I think, influenced by three major great scholars. Number one is father, definitely. And second, as I mentioned, Sayyid Burhanuddin Muhaqqiq. And the third one was Shamsi Tabrizi. These three people had a great influence on Rumi, especially Shamsi Tabrizi played a very great role. And even according to Afzal Iqbal, he argues that it was like the spiritual birth of Rumi after meeting with the Shams. So how he met with the Shams, again, it says that one day, Rumi was reading next to a large stock of books. So Shams Tabrizi just passing by and asked Rumi, what are you doing? Rumi scoffingly replied, because he looked at the Shams like is like a stranger, a traveler, does not look like a scholar or like a pious person. And he said that scoffingly, he replied, something you cannot understand. On hearing this, Shams threw the stock of the books into the nearby pool of water. Of course, Rumi hastily rescued the books. To his surprise, all the books were dry. Then Rumi asked him, what is this? Then Shams replied, Mawlana, this is what you cannot understand. Yeah, this is that you cannot understand. So, in the Rumi's education philosophy, first of all, he combined aql, the reasoning, and the heart. However, in the Islamic history, there are four different types. One of them, usually the naql, what we call the authentic text, goes before the aql, before the reasoning. Always is superior for some scholars. If you got the second type of scholars, the aql, the reasoning, and the heart goes hand to hand. And the third, the aql goes before the heart. If I give an example, I think you heard before, Ibn Sina is one of them, for example. Abu Bakr Razi and well-known philosophers, Ibn Rushd, for them the aql, the reasoning, comes before the divine revelation. And the fourth type is the heart goes before the aql, before the reasoning. Ibn Arabi and Mawlana Jalaluddin Rumi, we can say that we can classify both of them as such type of the scholars. So it's interesting that Rumi, after meeting with the Shams, he learned a lot from him. When he finished, the Shams said, now, no need to more. You already learned. He said, no. He wanted to begin again, start over. Like, someone finished the university, then go start from the year one again. So because, his love with the Shams, he did not want him to leave him alone. Always wanted to be with him. For Rumi, it is the role of aql and naql, I think, the reasoning and tradition plays a very important role in his books. He says that traveling from ignorance, which is called jahliya, to reason, to aql, then performing saintly miracles, karama. So, going to aql and leaving ignorance behind is important than to like a show a miracle in what we call in the West. But in Islam we call karama, divine blessings. And because he says that, he views state of ignorance as God's prison, but the state of knowledge as his lofty balcony. So he observed leaving ignorance to the marriage of heart and mind for education to be greatest achievement of his times. Because as Afzal Iqbal argues that, actually based on, again, Aflaki's book, he says that Rumi has more than 10,000 students. More than 10,000 students. That time, it is probably the whole population of Konya. I don't know whether it was 10,000 or not. It's very interesting. one of the, again, the main principle of the Rumi, like all great figures, compared to his contemporaries, including when the scholars blamed the external factors, whatever was happening to the Muslim world, Rumi focused more on internal factors instead of external factors. Because by that time, by the way, Mongol invaded. They destroyed whole of the Baghdad. They destroyed whole of the books. According to Ibn al-Athir, there is no great calamity than the Mongol invasion in the human history. Ibn al-Athir, by the way, he was 13th century, so 12th and 13th century scholar. He says that there is no great calamity than the Mongol invasion in the human history. Why? Because they killed almost 25% of the all Muslim population at that time. And it's not just killing, also what they did, they killed all scholars, not just religious scholars. That would include physicians, that would include philosophers, any kind of scholar, mathematicians. And so, according to the Western scholars, that the Mongol invasion, it's one of the major reasons of declining of Islamic civilization. And later, actually, it's interesting that, what we see in Rumi's life, Rumi was never openly critical to Mongols. Even that's why some of his contemporaries called him, he's a Mongol agent. And even they tried to kill Rumi. But Rumi was critical based on the philosophical principles. He was critical, but based on philosophical principles, not just, kind of like accusing or baseless accusation and so on. So, what we see that in Rumi's education philosophy, he emphasized that upbringing of the person must have a specific goal. What's the goal? Aiming to be insan al-kamil, whether some would translate a universal human or perfect man. A universal human or perfect man. That notion first time was used by Ibn Arabi. I thought about that. Why, days and night? Why Ibn Arabi used, insan al-kamil notion? Then that's my view. I can be wrong. I thought that he wanted to present insan al-kamil because if you look at the historical context where Ibn Arabi was born in Al-Andalus, probably that time half were non-Muslims, and he wanted to teach a lesson not just Muslims as well as non-Muslims. I would say that he summarized the Quran and Sunnah in 2 words, insan al-kamil. And because he says that the perfect human is the Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessing upon him. So he summarized the Quran and Sunnah, I would say in 2 words, insan al-kamil. So that was also the goal of Rumi. Again, Afzal Iqbal argues that he has a book, by the way, he's an Indian scholar. He published his book in, I think, 1951. It's a very great book, very intellectual book. We have it in our library. Those who are interested, you can read that book. He argues that Rumi specifically draws attention to both outward and inward beauties of human, for among all creations, the human form and the nature is the most exquisite. And then he says, the highest aim for a human being is to attain that innate nature through the model of insan al-kamil, to the perfect human. So then Rumi, those who've been in Konya, I don't know if you enter from the main gate. It was about 2.5 years ago when I was there. I look at on the gate there is a Persian poem. It is. I took the picture, but it was not clear. Thanks, Brother Muhammad Wardak, he actually translates for me. He says, Kaaba al-Ashaq bashad ayn maqam. If I'm not correct pronunciation, please correct me. Her ke naqis Ahmed inja shad tamam or shud tamam. He says that this station is the Kaaba of lovers. Whoever comes here incomplete will become perfect, will be completed. Whoever enters here is incomplete, but when he leaves, he becomes perfect. Because he says that I was a raw material, I was cooked, and I became mature, I was burned in love. Then I look at how is this education in philosophy? My argument is that it was heart-centered educational program. It was heart-centered, not just as in today what we call the modern day, totally, knowledge-based or intellectual-based or reasoning-based education. But it was also the heart-centered. For Rumi, the aql, the reasoning is important, but as long as it is being enlightened with a divine revelation. And sometimes one of the scholar, Imam Abu Bakr, she argues that Rumi is denial of the aql. And I would say no, Rumi never is denial of aql. Rumi in denial in the state of ecstasy. Because in that state, he's kind of like enjoying spirituality and no need of aql. Is in denial of many other things. Therefore, we see that for Rumi, the reasoning and heart goes hand to hand, or mind go hand to hand. But he says when you come to the king's door, the reasoning is like a police, is a guide. After that, no need to have aql, no need to have reasoning. There's no need of reasoning. In his education philosophy, in his time, there are 5 stages. Number 1, if someone wants, to study in the Rumi's study circle, number 1, that person will get his parents' consent. Then will enter. Those who have been in Konya, when you enter to the order of the house, or you will see on the left, a man is kind of like sitting, like we perform the prayer. They call sakapostu. So we'll stay there for 3 days. Only for prayer he will live there, or having the water will be given. So this person will stay there for 3 days and nights, talk less, eat less, speak nothing, only make dhikr, remembers. So after 3 days, if he pass this test, then he will sign a contract that he has to stay in the order's house for 1,001 days. I thought, why 1,001 days? Why not 1,002 days? I don't know why. Still, I'm searching. If someone find out, please let me know as well. So when he's accepted to the order's house, then the second stage starts. What he will do, he will help the ashjidada. The ashjidada mean the chef. He's like a saint. So he will clean the orders, the house, will clean the toilets, and cook, serve. According to one of the scholars, he says that the person would do at least 18 different type of works in that house. So why? What's the reason? I think from my personal point of view is to purify the nafs. Why? Because through service, human being is able to reach the purification in the shortest and safest way. Why? What the companion did, the companion of the Prophet? Serving humanity. Through that service, was easier to reach also the truth, the haqiqah. And if he also complete that stage, and of course he will be tested, he will be observed. There are many great mentors, like saints. And in Rumi says, for example, he says that in his book, one tiny mote of dirt inside the spiritual being, one tiny, inside of the spiritual being is 100,000 times worse than the outer dirt. Just one tiny dirt inside a spiritual being is worse than 100,000 times than the outside outer dirt. Just imagine. So if you pass this stage, then the third stage is chila, mean 40. So that person will seclude himself in a small room and have little food again. And we'll start the first day. We'll have little, and gradually the amount of the food, it will be minimized till I think in the last 5 or 10 days he would have probably just 70 sultanas per day. So we'll talk less, sleep less, make dhikr, read the Quran, just attend the congregation, and then goes back to the room. For some, they could be 80 days. For some, could be 120 days. According to Aflaki, Rumi actually completed 120 days. And also for 5 years, Rumi fasted as well, for 5 years. And the fourth stage, it will be acquiring the Islamic knowledge, which will consist the major Islamic sciences and the methodology. It will begin with the Arabic and Persian literature, and then theology, tafsir, hadith, jurisprudence, biography of the Prophet, tasawwuf or Sufism, and not just talking about it, but so to look at the inner meaning of everything. And then even they call murid, also we learn to play a music instrument, or we learn painting or calligraphy. So also the arts is there as well, not just the Islamic disciplines. And the fifth stage, which is the final one, to learn adab, or the moral values, in details. When you go to Konya, you can look at it. It's interesting. I did not know. I've been there many times, but last time when I was there, I asked someone, there are a few people sitting there, they're eating, and someone is drinking water. I said, can you tell me about this? What is this? He said that it was part of the adab, the moral values. They will sit together, eat together, but when one of the person who was eating with them, if he wants to drink the water, all others will put their spoon on the table. They will not eat. You know why? Because we may eat more, because they were eating one plate that time. We don't want to abuse the right of the person who is drinking the water. Look at the adab, the details. That this is not just something, by the way, happening. That there are more other things in terms of adab, in terms of the business, doing what called tijara, transaction, dealing with the others, even animals, that they have to respect the animals. I know that one of the great scholars, he recommended students to go and after serve human beings, he served animals for almost 3 years. Amir Kulal, actually, he recommended Bahadur Naqshbandi. And when the animal was passing by, he would stood up, just respect, even not harming animals. So with such person, do you think that we'll be able to harm the human beings? And that was the last stage. This means that now the person is ready, like to fly. And they call dada, Mevlevi dada. So what is he going to do? By the way, there are females as well, not just males. What he is going to do, then he'll be assigned to another cities. We call hijrah. You should go to Sivas, you should go to Damascus, you should go to Mecca, you should go to, let me say, Balkans and different part of the Muslim world and serve there. So they would make hijrah by assigning, by Mevlana or whoever was mentoring the student. So, so what Rumi did, I would say that, because Afzal Iqbal argues that whatever Imam al-Ghazali did in the 11th century in terms of the revival of Islamic sciences, also Rumi did in the 13th century. Yes, Rumi have some connection with what we call the Sufis, but he is not Sufi actually, on the other hand. He totally brings something new. When I say new, of course, not out of Islam, in terms of the renewal. My argument that Rumi reintroduced the philosophy of Ali Hujwiri. Those are from Pakistan, they know Ali Hujwiri. How you call him? Data Ganjbakh, yes. He is well known to serve, still every day, I think, a couple of thousand people, they get food from his place. The people donate the money, so they look after the poor and needy or those are homeless. Ali Hujwiri was 11th century, a great scholar and Sufi, but I would say that the servant of humanity. Because he says, see as everyone as your master. see everyone as your master. Doesn't matter whatever the faith is, because in his time, probably the majority of the people in that area maybe a Buddhist or Hindus or some in other religions. So he served everyone equally. He saw everyone as his master. What we see that also Rumi reintroduced, such servanthood, which is the essence of Islam, because when we say Ashhadu anna Muhammadan abduhu wa rasuluh, as you know, I bear witness that Muhammad is the servant and messenger of God. So why servanthood is coming before the messengerhood? So serving is important, because serving means to represent. Messenger means, Rasul means to convey, to present. So to represent in something comes before the presentation. Therefore, what Ali Hujuri did, or Hajuri, he served. So Rumi, I would say that he reintroduced this servanthood, not by talking, I would say through his actions. And based on what? Based on love. Why? Because when we look at the Muslim world at that time, there's clashes between the Muslims, different petty states, conflict between the different tribes, different clans, even probably some deviated religious sects were creating huge problems. So what Rumi wanted to bring the unity. And that unity, it would be based on love. And therefore, he so often focused on love in his works, not just in his work, also in his actions. So love of serving others is the foundation of Rumi's education philosophy. For him, planting the seed of Insan al-Kamil in human heart, love is necessary. If you like to make a person to be a perfect person, it must be based on love. Rumi says, by love, bitter things become sweet. By love, pieces of copper becomes golden. By love, drugs become clear. By love, pain becomes healing. By love, the dead is made living. By love, the king is made. So for Rumi, to achieve that perfect human, there's a great role of the teachers. He says that he's not looking for a talking teacher, but a practicing, applying teacher. And he gives the example that a teacher should be like a tree. The tree, they grow up, they provide the fruits. Even when they provide the fruits, they kind of like their branches is a bit lying, come on, take it, with beautiful, smelling, with beautiful fragrance that attract the people. Come, I have beautiful fruits. So that continues. We pick up the fruits, but we do not pay. So it says that a real teacher, it should be like this, but teach without no expectations. And therefore, I said that, so since, Rumi says that a teacher should be not just talking teacher, because, everyone can be a teacher, but not everyone can be an educator. To be an educator, I think the heart of mind combination of these two is necessary. So for his, to him, the aim of education, the first aim is to recognize the Creator at a degree of yaqeen, which means the certainty. And then serve humanity, which ultimately takes human to God. By serving humans, that will take you to God. And second, he says that after the faith is to plant universal values, which begin with common good, then instill this common good in a collective personality. That leads the unity and merges with the ummah. So individuals become groups become, gradually collective personality and becomes ummah. To achieve this again, the marriage of aql, the reasoning, and qalb, the heart, is necessary. The third aim, the teacher must be just a teacher, also should be an educator. And that to be an educator, again, the love is necessary. And the final of education, aim of education, is to strive to become Insan al-Kamil. So to be an Insan al-Kamil, also should go through the education, the others, regardless their faith, ethnicity, age, gender, and mainly by mainly serving through hal. Hal means, action with the sincerity. But I would say that not just sincerity, probably the hal is combination of sincerity, knowledge, wisdom, devotion, compassion, love, tears, and suffering. And when that reflects in the hal, then a person will become not just a teacher, also become an educator. So I don't want to take Brother Muhammad's time, because I think he has important task to do it, especially in terms of the Rumi's works, Masnavi or Fihi Mafi or Diwan. Or if I conclude my speech, Rumi is product of his time and is time of the crisis of the Muslim world. And he focused on internal factors and he planted the seed. And Afzal Iqbal argues that even the millet system in Ottoman actually is based on the Rumi's philosophy of teaching. I would say that yes or no, because definitely that's also based on the Medina Charter as well. We cannot say just, is from Rumi. But where the Rumi get this, probably, I would say that influenced by the Medina Charter, which the Prophet, when he immigrated to Medina, he signed that charter with the non-Muslims in Medina. And as I said, Afzal Iqbal says that what Ghazali did in the 11th century, Rumi did in the 13th century. And also Rumi, according to his biographer Aflaki, he was able to lead about 18,000 people also to become Muslims. 18,000, yes. That is, however, as always happens, there were great agnosticism antagonism against him as well. They called him Mongol agent, and they tried to kill him. And they also, when he was spending his time with the Shams, they think that Shams, he did brainwash, because Rumi did not want to preach, did not want to talk. He says that the books are worthless for me now. And so therefore, some people, they have jealousy. And there are two narrations. In one that they killed the Shams, other one that the Shams left Konya and never returned to the Konya. So Rumi summarized the spirituality in six lines. They call 7 advices of Rumi. He says, in generosity and helping others, be like a river. River can discriminate anyone. No, we can write down a book on this. It could be a PhD topic. What did he mean to be generous like a river? In compassion and grace, be like the sun. When we receive the sunlight, it's warming. It's not something, we like it. And without the sunlight, you cannot exist. So this means that without compassion, it will be the end of the world. Compassion is necessary. In concealing others' fault, be like the night. In anger and fury, be like death. In modesty and humility, be like the earth. In tolerance, be like the sea. Either appear as you are or be as you appear. If you summarize the whole spirituality, I think that 6 lines of his poem would include everything almost there. So he died, he called his death as Shabi Arus, which means like a wedding night. There's much details. You can look at some books, or even online you can get much more information. But as I said in the beginning, his biographer Aflaki says, no one understood Rumi properly. Rumi came to this world as a stranger and left as a stranger. When Saadet Konevi, initially he was kind of very against Rumi. He wrote him a letter severely criticizing him, how you can call Christian, Jews, everyone come, and even like an insult in the letter. He looked at the letter, just write down one sentence at the back of letter, come, I have a room in my heart for you as well. So Konevi later became his disciple, became his student, and Rumi asked him, to perform his funeral service before he died. So when he wanted to perform Rumi's funeral service, he fainted. Then later, when he woke up, he said that I saw that the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam and also the angels, they are present, and also they were performing his funeral service. So if I conclude, I would say that yes, great figures generally are not known by their contemporaries. And second, great figures can be known by the great people. And third, I think their words comes from the heart. And when the words come from the heart, affects the heart. And for Rumi, I would say that he suffered a lot, not just for the Muslim Ummah, for the Muslim community, as well as for the humanity. I would say that his tears, even sometimes his heart was bleeding. And he cleansed that bleeding heart with his tears and suffering. And the consequence of that, of course, he planted the seed of love. And that love later grew up, even become the foundation of Ottoman state, I would say that. However, it took almost 25 years after his death. So Rumi, yes, was a great man, a great jurist, a great scholar. We can call him a great Sufi. Definitely, in the West they call man of God. In Islam we don't use such statement. But when you see him, even because after his death, even Jews and Christians participated in his funeral, they said that we learn Jesus through him more than anyone else. We learn about Moses through him more than anyone else. So also even they participated the funeral service of Mevlana Jalaluddin Rumi. Well, that's my humble understanding in 40 minutes time. And so I can take maybe just one question, because I have another program I have to go. Yes, if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer. If not, then we can have a break. And after break, Brother Muhammad Wardak, he's going to discuss his works. I believe very beautiful poems, because when I read the poems of Rumi in Persian, it's like all of my items feel. Just one of them, Man bande Qur'anam magar jandaram ma haki rahi Muhammad Mukhtaram. As long as I live, I am the servant of the Quran, and as long as I live, I am the dust on the way of the Prophet. Yes?
I don't have a question.
Yeah. Okay.
I've got one. It's really just clarifying.
Yeah.
He summarized the Quran and the Sunnah in 2 words, but because I'm not Islam, I don't know the Arabic.
Yeah. Well, Insan al-Kamil, that's my understanding. You probably will never read or hear from anyone else. I thought about that for days and nights. Why that Insan al-Kamil, which means the perfect man. So Insan al-Kamil, he summarized the Quran and Sunnah that reflects in the perfect man. So I would say that the summary of the Quran and Sunnah. That's my argument. Whether agree or disagree, but personally I think I believe that after the long service of humanity, Ibn Arabi, he wanted to present not just Muslims, also to especially Christians at that time, because in that time, in the medieval times, as Christian calls, but in Islam they call the classical period, to even translate something from the Quran, to study anything from the religion, it was a taboo in the West. But when it's come to the philosophy, they would take it. They will learn from the philosophy. So I think what Ibn Arabi wanted, he wanted to summarize for the benefit of the humanity, the Quran in 2 words, that perfect man, which we call Insan al-Kamil.